Hello. Um, there's no good video on how to detail strip a Grand Power K100, and I'm gonna try and make one. I'm gonna probably mess up a few times, and I'm gonna edit that out, and I'm also going to clean the gun because I just got back from the range, so I'll edit that out too. So, first you just field strip it just like you're used to, and at that point you can clean the basics. I'm gonna start with the slide. There's really only one thing going on here, and that's the firing pin and the extractor. That's two things. So the extractor I'll do first. I hope it's visible. You've got the extractor, which is its own part. Underneath that is a plunger, and the plunger is worked on from the underside, from the top side, by a spring. Getting it out is easy. Getting it in is a little bit worse. Don't forget, this whole thing is not supposed to come out this way, up, but out the channel like the extractor. So, and again, you're working with springs, so haha, eye protection, right kids? No, but it can fly across the room if you're not super careful. Okay, I got it a little out of the way, and yeah. Now, as long as I don't let that plunger fly anywhere, I'm good. There's one more spring in this system, and that's your dynamic extractor spring. See this little guy? That is what prevents your gun from getting damaged if you single load, or if you're doing some kind of unorthodox thing where the extractor would snap over a cartridge or something else. So you can single load this gun. If you want to extract the plunger, there's no reason to do it, but since we're here, you gently lift it and you remove it out front ways, same way the extractor came out. I think you can, if you're really competent at this sort of thing, you can get it out directly up, but I've never pulled it off. Okay. So I lifted it off. There's one teeny tiny spring in there. Also can be lifted out. That's your entire extractor system. Getting it in, now that's a feat. Because on the way up, it was still gunked up and kind of sticking together. On the way down, it's going to be problematic. Part 2, and I think it worked out. Yes, compresses the right way. Good. and it snaps back in. That's your extractor in and out. Now, you can't single load this gun, but you can't dry fire it, and I'll show you why in a moment. The things holding the pin in are this pin and the safety, the auto safety. This'll do. These pins, by the way, are not directional, unlike the trigger group pin, which is. I'll show it to you in a moment, but can you see that slight deformation in the center? Right about there. That's where the pin is hitting, impacting roughly a third of this width of the pin. And you can chip that, and if you chip it, the part will get stuck, and you'll have to send it to a shop and where they extract it all, and it makes firing pin movement impossible. So dry firing, not so good. Single loading, thumbs up. So at this point, the pin isn't holding it in itself, but it's on the safety. If I extract, you see it's still under spring pressure, and you gotta get this guy out. And the way you do it is you first depress it, release the pin. Note the orientation, by the way. And then once you have the pin out, this rectangular cutout, this surface, that's what hits the pin. And your auto safety is just a plunger again. Plunger, spring, nothing to it. There's a section here that contacts the pin. There's also a firing pin spring inside, of course, but it doesn't get out usually because it's kind of filthy. It doesn't matter, you can pull it out with tweezers, but it's fine. So that's your entire slide detail stripped. Now, when you're putting it in, the nice cutout surface is going in the direction of normally down, so you should be seeing it like this. And the rectangular cutout should be on the opposite side, so down. You start off by inserting it up to a point, well, you depress the auto safety, you insert it so that it catches, you go yay, and now you start looking through the hole. You should be seeing on the top end a little bit of movement. Yeah, that is the pin, and that is the firing pin, and when you're entering the roll pin, you should have it depressed to the point where it doesn't interfere. So that's basically bottoming out. After the midway point, it'll already start to hold in the way it's supposed to. And if you're smart, you'll get a rubber mallet for this. If you're dumb like me, you'll be using a wooden one because that's what you have around. One fully functional, lightly wood dusted K100 slide. That's all there is to it. Now for this next trick, the stuff that I learned is the most important is that so you've got your frame insert and it's held in by this pin which holds the slide release, this pin which holds just the thing, and the safety. And in my experience, you should end this assembly with the safety and you should start with the safety because these have no wiggle room. These are fine. These will be fine. This one can wiggle. So if you end on this, you might end up being in like a troubled position. Also, keep your hammer cocked. You can decock it later, but once you're assembling, you want to have it cocked and you want to have the sear and trigger in the cocked position. In my experience, it works better that way. And of course, you can't actually actuate the safety when it's fully decocked. So, slide release, which will also release the guide rod. Easy, simple. The one in the back. Which will announce itself in absolutely no way. And now we have the safety. So the safety is 3 pieces. You've got a left, right, and the center piece, which actually has the surfaces which cause the safety to work. And I used to be able to disassemble it as 2 pieces, and lately it started to be 3 pieces, and you have to remain cognizant of which part goes up and which goes down. Getting the safeties out is a matter of getting your blade up in this hole and pushing it out just gently. It'll just pop out just a hint, and you can get it out all the way after that. Just the barest hint. And now, okay, we've got it in full. Good. So, the pegs are oriented up forward, down backward, and this surface area should point down into the rear of the gun. Decockers probably work the same. I've never seen one, but I assume it's the same deal. Now your insert is completely free, so you can jam something underneath and start dragging this guy out. At some point you will trip the sear. It's not a bad idea to drop the disconnector. Things that you might lose at this stage: there's a spring underneath here which holds your slide lock down under normal circumstances, and this pin which is held in only by the frame, so once you remove the frame insert it kind of falls out. Still waiting on that. Okay, we dropped it. So this part jumps out immediately. That's the surface that your barrel rotates against. You got this teensy tiny spring that never needs to be cleaned ever, turns out. I wish this were located either in the center or on both sides, because I have a short thumb, so I can't really operate it on the thumb side, which is where the part is. And so what I do is I drop it with my finger, and it can happen that the part is still, you get this thing like not perfectly aligned, like it just does something else on the right than on the left. So it can like keep sticking on the left side while I drop the right. What are you gonna do? You can remove finally the slide lock, and if you want to, you can remove these red, or I heard they used to be blue, these pips that hold your safety in a position, and after that your sear comes free. Like there's nothing holding it in at this point except for those red things and the trigger group. And I was told by the guy who runs Apex Gun Parts not to mess with the trigger group, and it has the only directional pin in the thing, and I am going to take him up on it. So if you want to clean this area, just get those red, you know what, let's do it. Fuck it. May as well. I think they're far out enough. See that? That's nice. I'm gonna clean the insides while I'm here. Cleaning this is an entirely aesthetic choice. You can't gunk these parts up to any point where they would interfere with operation. This is just the mag well and the mag release. Actually, turns out you can push out the mag release as well, and it's just a matter of pushing it in deep, helping yourself up here with your thumb, and getting it all the way through. There it is. Once you push the holding part, the one that actually interferes, hold the mag in, it just drops right out, and this is what it looks like. Perfectly ambidextrous, and getting it in is just a matter of pushing this part back in. You can see it's the same deal as with the other pin. Let's get an angle on this. Yeah. That's my thumb working the thing from the inside. So the cutout is directed to the rear of the gun. You just push on this. There it is. And that's it. The inside of the tube where the mag release lives gets rusty. This is the #1 place where rust happens because of finger sweat that pools in this very ergonomic but unfortunately moisture trapping hole. So I'm going to drop the sear back down, and note it's defaulting to the double action position because nothing is holding it back in. So that's your entire frame, sans the group with the trigger. I never did it. I never needed to disassemble it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to risk it. Sorry. The guy from Apex Gun Parts didn't either. And frankly, what you see here is all you're going to see if I disassemble it. This entire insert, every part you see Actually, that's not true. One part is hidden, and that's the plunger inside the hammer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the hammer. The hammer catch is this part over here, and if you push on it with a tool, you essentially do what the sear does. The sear usually pushes on this part right here. It's between the hammer, the cocked hammer, and the trip. And what you see under here, under that little bar, this little bar, is a plunger, and that plunger, I think, I haven't figured out what it does because it's not the hammer return spring. So this is all there is. If you want to disassemble this further, it's just this pin, this pin, this pin, and once you have this subsection out, there's this pin and this pin. I disassembled it once and it is perfectly clean. There's absolutely nothing to do with there, and on the way back you might make a mistake. This part is just slightly thinner than the parts, these two big parts, and also you have this disconnector trip on the right side and your ejector on the left, and I of course bungled those two up. But so if you're a masochist, this is where you continue. I won't. I'm just gonna clean this up a little bit and call it a day. Good. Fine. Okay. Reassembly starts with the slide stop. I'm gonna insert this whole thingamajig, and it's uncocked now because I messed with it, so I'm gonna cock it. And now I'm holding the trigger in, so it's as if this thing were cocked. And you can see it's already trying to catch. Good, good, good. Let's try it out. Okay, it didn't drop. But it's dropping the disconnector, which is good. Oh, we forgot one thing. Good. Okay, the disconnector is dropped. And I'm gonna try and wiggle this thing in. Good. And I think at this point it's going to try and drop the hammer. Good. Perfect. That's my boy. Okay, I'm gonna leave it cocked because it's easier that way. We've got our guide rod. Just about right. Lovely. We still got a few pins to go. We've got exactly one pin to go. Good. So it's back fully in there. I'm gonna clean this area just in front of the barrel, because that carries a lot of trash. Kind of like me in video games. Good. And by this point it's just field stripped. This is your field stripped gun. Mark 12s have that other thing in the front, but this is a cleaned gun now. I'm gonna do the barrel and oil it, and that's it. Usually I have a whole routine where I baby around with all the rails and evenly distribute all the oil and just take care of it like a good gun. But I've had a long day. I have never lubed up the locking rotating surface down there, but I've always done the barrel and all of it. I don't think it's really necessary up front. I don't think that ever is like a real issue, but the area in the back really likes lube. Lovely. So that's how you detail strip a K100, except for the trigger group and the masochism part in the trigger in the insert. Good. I hope this is of use to you. I'll link in the text below Apex gun parts. This cool guy made a whole text where he did it, but he made it as like a blog post with pictures. And honestly, some of the movements were a little scary first time around, so I hope this is making stuff easier for all 6 of the people who own this gun. Okay. Thank you. Take care.